All right. Welcome to the Non-Stuffy Attorneys Podcast. Today we have John Strohmeyer from Strohmeyer Law. Welcome to the show, John. John also has Five-Star Counsel podcast where he discusses all kinds of stuff, a lot on customer service. He would definitely be considered a customer service expert. And, I have a lot of thoughts on customer service myself. I think it's completely overrated and not important. And I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Whatever works for you, Joe. I'm sure your business is doing fine with all the choices you've made.
No, it's God, it is. Customer service is probably the one of the most important things. It's like you look at marketing and getting leads and getting the sale and all of that. But if you don't deliver exceptional service and your client doesn't have an amazing experience, right? Your business just isn't going to do well. Whether you get bad reviews or not, right? It's just like it's like a magnet, right? Has two sides. It's either like you deliver amazing service to your clients and it sticks new clients to you, or I don't know, people pick up on it, whether or not, they're a client or not. They can pick up whether you're giving bad service, and they'll stay the hell away from you. You agree?
Right.
You agree with that?
Yeah. And so, we're a Non-Stuffy Lawyer podcast. I'll give you a lawyerly definition of what I think client service is, because the problem I had for years, I've worked at the Four Seasons hotels for years in management before becoming a lawyer. And I could see things are different, but it took a while to be able to put my finger on it. So our 4-point definition, 4-factor test. Client service is how a business delivers the physical and technical components of its product. And the thing to pull out, kind of thing number one, physical and technical components. Well, that means there are 3 things. We've got service component, we have physical component, we have technical component. Now, physical is easy. If you go to the hardware store and buy a bag of screws, you're going there primarily for the stuff. You want to walk out with a bag of stuff. If you go to Disney and Four Seasons, the Ritz, and fancy restaurants and things like that, that's not a physical component business. Sure, you're getting the experience, you're getting the benefit of their stuff, but you're not necessarily taking it home with you. You're just kind of using it, but really you're going there for that service or the experience that you mentioned earlier. Like, you're going to have fun with that business. So primarily you're going for some version of entertainment, pampering, and fun.
Yep.
As lawyers, but also true for doctors, CPAs, engineers, financial advisors, anybody who's kind of not one of those other two. Well, what are we? We're technical businesses. People are coming to us to move the needle on some problem or some issue that they have. So, that they come to you and me, we're estate planners. They're looking to avoid messes when they die. That's easy. They're not coming for they're not coming for 3 gallons of billable hours. They're not coming for, the whimsical whimsical decor in our offices. They're not coming necessarily to enjoy some off time from work. They have a problem. They want it solved. And the problem, kind of the thing that people get wrong and lawyers get wrong all the time is, well, let's look at what Disney and Four Seasons have done. If we stay at those places, we experience them. We're in the service business, kind of, but we're in a very different service business than Disney and Four Seasons. And if you start taking lessons of, entertainment, pampering, and fun, and try and layer it onto a legal practice or a medical practice or an accounting practice, it distracts from what you're there to do. Like, people aren't coming to us for that. And the fun part of it, it doesn't mean we shouldn't enjoy what we're doing. It doesn't mean, when we're talking about death for you and me in our practice, we can't be lighthearted and kind of react to clients, but they're not coming to us for, a comedy set. They're not coming to us for a well done or a well prepared, not well done steak. They're not coming to us to ride a roller coaster. They don't want a massage from us, so we shouldn't offer a massage or, food service. They're coming to us to solve problems. And so focusing the majority of our efforts on that is what I want lawyers thinking about.
So now, are you setting that up from the kind of the get-go before they even hire you? Is that part of what your thinking is on that aspect?
Right. It's kind of thinking through kind of the three main aspects of a business. Like, what do businesses do? Well, there's the marketing, the one way, here's what we do. You're looking to make it easy for people to raise their hands and say, yes, I need, or, I see that problem can be solved there. Thing two, sales. Once they've said, I recognize that problem, how easy are you making it to get in and become a client? And then finally, delivery. Whatever it is you're going to do, the experience, the service part of it is kind of, what is that client experiencing? Like, is it hard? Is it herky jerky? Like, we're asking questions a bunch of times. So thinking through all of those aspects of the business, and then, getting down to individual touch points. If somebody calls your main number the first time, can they get through? Does somebody pick up the phone? Is that person smiling? Does the person know if you do that work or not? If somebody calls my firm looking for, a vehicular PI attorney, they're in the wrong place, and we're not going to have good answers for them because we don't do that work. And frankly, we don't get that many calls. If they call looking for a podiatrist, they're really in the wrong place. We're not going to try and be those people, even though, like, we get those random calls. It doesn't make sense for us to do that work. So yeah, it's something that kind of permeates how do we make it easy for everybody, clients, owners, and employees throughout the process.
Yeah. I can see when you have it like those processes really well defined and the team grooved in on it, it makes the employees more stable, right, as well. And the more confident and stable they are with the processes, the smoother that they can deliver them to the client,
Right.
Or the prospect.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
for sure.
And I mean, I left the Four Seasons, hate saying this, 2006, so almost 20 years ago. I checked people in and out for years. I can still do a reasonably good job of it, just kind of thinking through, because it was drilled in. It was a basic process.
What
But
was
I
it?
did it so much. You welcome people. I'm not going to run through all of it because there are like 23 things and it'll take 2 or 3 minutes.
Was there anything that was like particularly stands out compared to other places?
Right. So one of the things was, maintaining client privacy. And so one thing to think about was, well, when you're giving clients, or when you're giving guests their room keys, you would always point to the room number. You would never vocalize it. And that was client safety issue. You always made 2 keys. You never even asked if they only wanted 1. Why? Because if they say, if you're giving somebody do you want 2 keys or 1, you're potentially identifying them as a solo traveler, which is a security issue for, at least half the travelers, if not everybody who's thinking about it. You shouldn't have to identify that you are traveling alone, and having somebody ask you that, like, there's not a good reason. And so every time I'm asked 1 key or 2, I always say 2, but I'm thinking, why are you putting me in the position of identifying that I'm traveling alone? Again, I'm not the likely target, but it's something to think about of, why are you doing it that way? Why are you asking? And what are the kind of downside ramifications of you asking that? Does somebody actually really want that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's interesting. That's pretty interesting. I have kind of a
Yeah.
side story. My buddy, he's a high-end art dealer. He's out in Berkeley. Him and his brother they're art dealers. sell Picasso's, very, very nice art. They're down in Mexico at a show, Mexico City. Then they travel to Boca. They put pieces on the plane, brought him to Boca. He had $60,000 in cash, right? They get to the hotel. He goes to bed. He's in his underwear, right? He's sleeping. It's 2 a.m, and he's got several pieces of art in his room. He said it was like maybe $300,000 worth of art, $60,000 worth of cash.
Right.
And he's woken up by a guy in his underwear getting into his bed. Yeah.
Frowned upon.
Yeah, that's not ideal. Apparently this guy was all drunk, went to the front desk, said he was actually in the wrong hotel. Well, he wasn't even staying there. He was staying in a hotel down the street. Went to the front desk, said, hey, I lost my key. They don't ask for ID. They give him, nope, they give him the key. He goes up there, thinks it's his room, strips down, gets in bed with my buddy. And my buddy freaked out.
He should have.
Oh my God. He was, I mean, my buddy's he's a pretty tough guy. He's not going to he's not, afraid, but he was in the middle of the night. He's sleeping. All of a sudden this guy's getting in bed with him. He said it was nuts. He ended up getting comped a bunch of stuff and all that. But yeah, it was pretty wild.
Yeah. And I mean, that's even more basic of, you have to ask for ID for something like that. And sometimes it's always shocking to me of how much you can kind of get away with. Just by being nice. Sometimes I try that on my own firm. I unintentionally left keys at home at my office. One Saturday afternoon, it's like, oh, well, I've got the key to my office door, but I didn't have the swipe card to get on the floor. And the security guard, who didn't know me because it was the weekend guard, was like, I'm sorry, I can't let you in at all. And it was frustrating because I had to drive back to the house to get my key card. But I'm really glad I wasn't able to just talk my way through by pointing, well, just look at this website. Potentially I could have mocked up a website that said I was on the 12th floor of my building, but they weren't going to let me in. It's like, the answer is you have your car key or your key card. And if you don't, I'm sorry. And good. I mean, great. That's great for the building. I told them that was great.
For sure. Yeah, it was a wild story, man. He was all jacked up.
As well he should have been.
So that was the first thing, right? With the point with the customer service. What's the next point? Or were you done on that?
Oh, I mean, no, I had my 5-Star Counsel podcast ran 120 odd episodes on client service. I could talk about it for a long time.
Well, what's like a basic thing that you see that law firm owners are kind of lacking in regards to customer service?
So it comes down to setting up repeatable processes. And the first answer I usually hear from lawyers is, well, every client is unique. Every set of circumstances is a unique snowflake. And that is true. But it doesn't make things bad or wrong to say, well, if you're drafting a will, if you're filing a lawsuit, if you're doing some M&A, acquisition of a business, there are certain stages, and knowing the process and being able to explain it, first to yourself, but, second to your client, and third to your employees. I can think back to when I was a new attorney working on my first probate. All right, well, I'd draft an application for probate and turn it into the partner and say, all right, well, where's the, notice to creditors and the oath and the proof? And I'm like, I don't know. You didn't tell me. It's just kind of the things that kind of rolled out of their head of, oh, we need to see this. And so thinking through the process of, over the years, we as attorneys develop expertise in our areas. And it becomes second nature to us. And it's like, okay, well, we have all of this ingrained in us. We know the next steps are going to be, 1, 2, 3, and 4. The problem is we can't do everything, and we don't want to do everything. There are certain things that we just need to have done. At this point, I don't want to draft documents from scratch. I want to review and kind of finalize the last leg before they go out, making sure that things look good. But I don't need to start from scratch on that. So I need to empower people to know, here's everything I'm going to be looking for. We want to make sure that when we're drafting those documents, well, since I'm the final reviewer, it should look the way I want them to, in line with what clients have requested. And by doing that, how do I then, the next step is, how do I enable my staff, associate attorney, paralegal, college intern, to do things correctly the first time? Because if they can do it first, it means they don't have to come ask me. It means they don't have to ask the associate. It means they're empowered in kind of how do we set things up so they know? Again, going back.
How are you doing that? How are you doing that?
Right. So going back to the hotel, again, there was a 23-point checklist. These are the 23 things that happen every time somebody checks in. And it's a combination then on our side of, well, it's not just a checklist. Checklist is one thing. All right, here we're going to have this. Like when we're at the beginning of an estate planning matter, there are 8 things we need to get done before the first meeting, just so we know everybody's ready. Some of them may not, we may not get some of them done for various reasons, but most, there's one that's just not mission critical. It's great to have done. And if it doesn't happen, we'll be fine. But then going the next step up, looking at the entire process, making sure people know, these are the things that are going to happen. These are the stages. And when we're in this stage, what needs to happen? Because then we can kind of say, all right, along all of our clients, we want to make sure we're not forgetting anybody. Being able to track, here are all the people by stage. And so we're not, when we're going through our matters, we're pulling up all of our estate planning matters at once. We're not going alphabetically, and we're not going by whoever anybody can remember. We're going stage by stage, for the people, and we typically start with people who are closest to the end of the process. Why? The sooner we get them out, the sooner we can put new people at the top. So we focus our kind of fresh energy on that meeting, on the people who are almost done. Like, let's see what we need to do to push them out. Beyond that, all right, well, the people who are ready for scheduling and making sure we're prepped for a signing. And then when you're going through, we had somebody new start last week. So what she's seeing as a new employee is, like, we're talking through the process, and you're seeing kind of different variations all at once. Like, here are all the people, here are the 5 people who are either scheduled for signing or coming up for signing in the next week or 2. You're hearing the same, okay, well, we're kind of focused on this one stage. And when you hear that, it's easier to kind of see the things that are consistent among those people and how that process works. You're not jumping from somebody who's coming in for their first meeting, somebody who needs help with a beneficiary designation, somebody who has questions on revised drafts. By focusing in and kind of dealing with all of the people in a similar stage all at once, it helps reinforce what we're doing and what to see and the variations within that.
That's interesting. So, okay, so with an estate plan, you have 5 different stages, for example, right?
Sure.
So you're meeting with your team, and it's like, okay, who's on stage 5, and how do we get them done, right? And then, okay, you're planning that out, and then, well, how often are you having this meeting?
So for estate planning and probate, we alternate every other week.
Okay.
So it's Friday mornings. We're running through all of the probates, knowing that we'll come back to everybody in 2 weeks. There are a few hot topic things, getting ready for hearings. We'll talk about every week anyway, and getting ready for signings. We'll touch on those every week, but most of the time it's just, here's where everybody is. making sure we've all caught up on them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So in that meeting, are you just like mostly focused on the final stage, or are you guys also talking about other earlier stages as well?
We're running through all of the stages.
Okay. You go
And
through do you go through every probate that you have, for example?
Yes.
Okay. How many do you have active?
35 or 40.
Okay.
And the point on this meeting, it's a 45-minute meeting. The point is not to rehash everything. It's here are these people. We've got everybody. Right now we know associate attorney is responsible for this. All right, what needs to be done on this? What help do you need? Oh, nothing to do right now. We're waiting for the hearing in 3 weeks.
Yeah. So we have probate's our biggest practice area.
Okay.
It makes the most money for us too. Right now, hopefully Medicaid will in the near future, because that'll be more profitable. But we have I think it's around 350 open probates right now. Yeah. And we have 3 paralegals that are handling it. We have a probate administrator who's overseeing it all. Each of the paralegals have their own assistant. And they used to, before we had this many cases, they were doing a similar meeting with what you were saying, right? And the meeting it would take them like 2 hours. And
yeah.
I know it's too much, right? What would you suggest in our situation with something like that, with where we're at?
Yeah. And so, that's order of magnitude larger than what I've got. I mean, the point on this meeting is really to make sure the team knows where everybody is and to get help on it. It's not necessarily you can answer the quick questions.
Yeah.
Hey, we need to do this, but it's making sure things aren't falling through the cracks. And so this is not an in-depth, we're going to run through all of it, kind of bring me up to speed on, I'm not necessarily looking for bring me up to speed on it, because most of these, we're talking about it during the week. I'm going to review the drafts. I know what's on the drafting plate and when, kind of what should be coming up. So this is not all right, well, who's done this? It's all right, well, we're waiting on this application to be filed. Has that been done? Yes. Okay. Well, make some quick notes just to update it and kind of make sure, okay, well, the hearings this week, have we made sure to invoice for the work so far? Kind of everybody's there to make sure everything's getting cleaned up. It's not, having been a part of those slog 2.5-hour meetings, that to me, what I remember of those type of meetings, because I'd been at 3 different firms before I started this one, the firm that did that, it really was, and it was every other week because nobody wanted to do it more often than that. It was coming in and people weren't prepared, or they were looking for, oh yeah, let's talk about everything that goes on with this client. We don't have time for that. We set aside 45 minutes for this meeting as a way of saying, this is all the time we're going to do on this. So we have to move quickly through it. But the reason we can move quickly through it is we've made things efficient elsewhere. All of the pre-hearing, right now we need pre-hearing documents done. Is the paralegal working on that? Or whoever's supposed to be working on that. Have we assigned that appropriately? Can we see what is on everybody's plate?
Yeah. 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 I got to find out kind of where they're at right now. We we started implementing bonuses for our paralegals for when they hit, certain target, when they complete certain things, certain markers in certain times, just to move it along, right? Because yeah, before it was not moving as quickly as I would like, and
right,
that's like a customer service thing. Speed of service is huge, right? Yeah, that's like I've always had that ingrained in me. The quality has to be high, but speed of service has to be viewed as equally as important.
Right. And to jump in on this, there are certain things, again, speed, cleanliness, these are how you convey, what you're doing. The lack of mistakes. I'm sure you've probably sent out things where you're like, oh God, like it says I am not married to so and so. It's like, well, that's embarrassing. We did that. Those will happen, but having things in place so that it's checked appropriately, like figuring out your drafting process, and it's important to do it correctly and accurately, but we also know we're not going to start from a blank sheet every time because we want to keep some consistency. Thinking through, AI is a neat tool, but there's no way I would go to an AI and say, draft a document for me, because it's going to generate something slightly different every time. And that doesn't help me. That makes it worse because now I've got to go through and, kind of mentally check off, is everything actually in there?
What do you think? So on that point, right, on AI,
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to a podcast. It was with Elon Musk, and it was pretty recent. And he was basically talking about how within several years, all service-based industries could be at total danger of being just taken over by AI. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, at the low end, perhaps, but for our practice, I know that kind of the higher up people go in net assets, the less likely they are to trust a program
Yeah.
to do something. Like they still want, they're coming to us for the certainty that this is right. Sure, you can plug in symptoms into Chat GPT and see if you can get some ideas on what's going on. But that's not an actual person who's looked at you. There is zero chance I'm giving up on, my normal doctors. Like I still have a primary care physician that I go and see, not just Chat GPT, because I want somebody to kind of look at me, kind of poke and prod, take my blood pressure, not just rely on it. Like, sure, I take my blood pressure at home. I think I'm doing it right, but I'd rather somebody, like somebody who's trained to do it, actually do it. And it's that certainty, it's slack in the system, but that
But how
efficiency
about how about if there's stuff out there with AI where they're seeing stuff on scans that doctors have missed.
Mhm.
So what if it gets to the point where the AI is more accurate than a human doctor, right? Do you then, if you have the data, then right, if it's like, hey, AI is accurate 99.9% of the time, whereas these physicians are 95% of the time. What do you think about that?
The best is not going to be one or the other. It's going to be the doctor who uses the tool. Same for us. It's not
Yeah.
just me alone. Eventually there will be tools, for estate and gift tax planning. There are some options, some things to think about. But the thing I look for is what's going to be there to support me, not supplant me, and vice versa. Like the AI is not going to necessarily know how to talk to people or ask, it's not going to ask the right questions to get the right responses. It's not going to hear the nuance when they say, if they take a breath for an extra half second before answering the question, AI is not necessarily going to know what to think about that,
Yeah.
because it doesn't,
Yeah.
it only does what you've programmed it for. And again, it's not that I don't think the tools are neat. I use them. I'm less worried about being totally replaced in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I mean,
I mean, it's an interesting time period that we're in right now, because it's like, they have these robots walking around that are doing flips and crazy shit, and
absolutely.
and then how about in 10 years they look totally human,
Yeah.
right? Like that's not out of the realm of possibility. Yeah, it's going to be interesting because it's moving fast, right? It's like, yeah, it's at the speed of light right now, and there's really no regulation on it. The governments can't keep up with the regulation on it. They just don't have yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not to say that there aren't places for it. we've just got to sit and think about, like, does this make sense? Are we actually, is it making it better? Pulling it back to service. Is it making it better and easier for the clients and the employees and you,
Yeah.
the owners? Or, is it a shiny new toy that may not actually be helping?
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how all this plays out over the next 5-10 years. Yeah. Hope we're not out of a job.
No,
We'll see.
obviously, me too.
So do you have, as you were talking to me about checklists, I started thinking, because I know Ashley, she's my wife, the managing attorney. She's very particular about how documents are drafted, right?
Mhm.
Right. Stylistically and everything. Do you have checklists on that type of thing?
No, I don't. I have experimented, but been, inconsistent in using like a type form kind of grading thing of like, here are the basic things that should have been in there. Did you, spell everybody's name out? Did you identify information we're missing as kind of the ground level? Did you draft this correctly? Then there's moving up, uh, was this the right thing? Did you integrate the pieces correctly? How was your drafting? Does this reflect clients' actual wishes? Or, like, just kind of catching me when I haven't looked at that in a while and also haven't used it in years. But it was less a checklist, but a kind of list of common mistakes to help people understand, oh, well, you did this, this, and this, but the point was to identify weaknesses in drafting so people could get better feedback than just, this stinks, do it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what I also do is, thanks to the magic of Zoom, my associate and I will review documents on Zoom. So she's watching me as I'm going through it. I'm going through a document. I'm making, sometimes I'm correcting the Word document itself. Other times I'm just going through and just highlighting and say, this needs to be rewritten. Here are roughly things. She has the chance to ask those questions immediately instead of, the firms I worked for before. You turn something in, the partner would get to it whenever, and then you'd see handwritten notes on your desk of fix this. And you're just kind of left, okay, well, trying to translate things, not getting a chance to ask questions because they're not there in front of you. That does it take me potentially more time because I have to sit there with them and answer questions? Yes, but overall it's going to cut down time because they can ask those questions right then. And it's also a chance to train her. Like, I'm lazy. I'm training Virginia faster, so that she can get better at this sooner. And I don't have to correct those mistakes, or the next time around she's got better guidance on it.
Yeah. Yeah. We're really we have a big push right now on documenting our processes and our SOPs and all that stuff, because we grew a lot last year. We've grown every year. We're coming up on 5 years now, but it's always it seems like it's just been kind of balls to the wall, and we just keep bringing in lots and lots of business, and then we have to hire more help, and then it's like, okay, I need to pay them, so now I got to bring in even more business. So it's been this revolving door, and it's been a little bit of a cope situation. Like, we're coping with the work that we have to do. So our processes and our standards haven't been properly documented like we want. So it's a lot of the training is like, when we get a new employee, it's sitting down with them and literally showing them everything.
Right.
So we're slowly, like, right now it's like, okay, we need to start implementing, training materials for, for the next hire and all that. It's a sloggy process, I'll tell you. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, have you found anything that actually works? Or
AI has helped.
Really?
In the sense that I've been using it a lot with the sales team, intake and sales. And I have an idea, and also our CRM and how we're using that with our sales processes. So it's like, I know I have in my head, okay, I need to write a directive on, okay, this is what you say, for example, when following up with a client, and this is why you say it. And I can sit down there and write it all out myself, or I can type 4 sentences into ChatGPT and say, hey, create a directive on this. Boom, they pump it out 10 seconds, 2 seconds. And then I go in and I tweak it a little bit, and then it's ready to publish. So that's how I've been using it. We just got Scribe. You know what Scribe is?
I'm vaguely familiar, but why don't you remind me?
Yeah, it's and I don't know how it is yet. I screwed around with it just on something stupid the other day, but it's essentially, it's a screen recorder. It's an AI screen recorder that you go through some process. It watches everything that you do. You can talk, you can, use a microphone and talk into it to tell it what you're doing, or it'll
Right.
just kind of summarize it. It'll figure it out on its own. But yeah, you go through a process. Like, for example, I did one for how to create a new lead in our CRM, and I didn't use the microphone at all. And yeah, it just follows along, takes screenshots as you're going, like highlight things. Yeah, it was pretty neat. It was pretty interesting. So we're going to see how that goes, because we just hired 2 new legal assistants yesterday, and they they're being trained by our probate administrator. And I was like, hey, you need to, everything that you show them, you need to use Scribe, and let's see if it pumps it out right.
Interesting.
So we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. But there's so many processes, especially in probate. It's so long, and there's all these different things that you're doing. And yeah, we just got to get streamlined, because we're definitely not streamlined enough right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like you want to get it streamlined. The other thing, again, I mentioned this once before, like the humans are still the slack in the system, which is both good and bad. You want the slack, because if you've ever had to do a return with Amazon, it gets difficult because it's just a chat, effectively a chat bot who's not paying attention, doesn't pick up on the frustration. And thankfully, most of the times things are usually right, or it's not so complicated that the chatbot can't deal with it. For what we're doing, you need more slack than that. Again, the nuance of individual humans, for example, the cross-border post or prenuptial agreement I'm working on, there's no chatbot you're ever going to train to coordinate the 3 different jurisdictions involved right now. Like, it's just, you've got to have the individuals working on it. But, perhaps the family that just has the $200,000 home and 2 401ks and 1 W-2, frankly, we as estate planners, that's not where we're getting most of our work from.
Mm-hmm.
We're here for the more complicated things. And, thankfully, at least for now, I don't see those clients looking to go to LegalZoom. I mean, if they were, LegalZoom, I think I saw something, I forget, probably 2 years ago at this point. Mostly what they do is form businesses. They're not taking estate planning work from us. And they've been around forever at this point. Like, nobody's, no estate planner is worried about them taking business. And probably no attorney who forms businesses is really worried about them, because, again, the forming the business is the easy part. Kind of coordinating things and getting it done is. And I mean, something else that is interesting to track is that TurboTax every year has Super Bowl ads. And I mean, CPA has been upset about them because they're taking away basic business for years. But it's interesting to track how much they press AI, done for you, the machines versus humans. And I found someone, I think I'd put together, I went and found their Super Bowl commercials over the last 10 or so years. And it's interesting to see the progression of them saying, oh, the robots are going to do it all for you. But then the last 4 or 5 years, No, you've got a human. This is whoever on TurboTax. This is the person who's going to help you with it, not the machine that's going to do it for you.
Yeah, I know personally, if I'm in a chat and I realize it's a bot, I'm like, I'm out.
Yeah.
Right? Instantly, I'm out. Right. Yeah, we hired Smith AI recently as virtual receptionist to take over, to basically filter calls. And they have an option for AI to be the receptionist. So our calls are answered by actual live people, but they have an option.
I use them too.
Yeah. Oh, do you?
Yes.
Yeah. But I tested the virtual one and it sounds really good, right? Like the AI talking, the voice sounds really good, but there's a lag. And it's not a lot, but it's enough where I'm like, I'm not talking to a human here.
Yep.
As soon as I get that, forget it.
Right.
Forget it. I'm out. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's the thing is people can pick up on this, and it's, the efficiency mindset, like, look, McDonald's can automate the fry later, they clearly don't want to automate keeping the ice cream machine working, but there's only so far you can press that. Like, people will accept it at certain levels. And going back to it, it's kind of adapting the wrong mindset. The physical component, the technical component, the service component. When it comes to service, you definitely want humans there. You don't want to automate all of that. But when it comes to perhaps going and getting a bag of food or 10 screws, you'd be fine with going to a vending machine.
Right. It makes me think about going to a restaurant. It's like, if there was a robot in the back cooking up an amazing meal for me, I wouldn't give a shit. But if I got a robot coming to my table asking me how my day was and, all that, I'd be like, get out of here.
Yeah.
Forget about it.
Yeah. That's insincere. Like, it's just you can, and we can all tell that, when somebody's asking you those kind of fake, they're not fake questions, but they're insincere about what they're doing. Like, there's a difference, the pieces of flair. Well, I've got the minimum, and if I didn't have a minimum, then why didn't you make the minimum higher? You want people, like, again, it's that slack in the system. You're going to have the headaches of having people work for you, but what you get is a better connection with clients and the chance to let them talk to you and really get what they want. I mean, sure, we could just kind of build the alternative to LegalZoom, but clients don't want that. They want to be heard by something that's not a machine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. We've kicked around creating another law firm, another entity that does legal work at a lesser cost. That's just not as personal touch, right? Everything's virtual and, no signing and all of that, and not kind of the bells and whistles that our firm delivers. Definitely not LegalZoom-esque, but our rates are some of the highest in the area intentionally. But with that, we get a lot of people who, don't pay for our services, which is fine, right? But they're going somewhere else and getting something cheaper. Yeah.
Right.
And yeah, we've kicked that around.
Right. And that's the thing. It's, when you're committed to these higher service or technical service plans, like, you don't want to be the low cost leader.
No.
How do we make sure people are coming to us for the right reasons? And I don't have explicit minimums for estate planning, but there are trends on the, kind of a minimum of people who are going to be happy with hiring us and paying what we require.
Yeah, we're intentionally high, one of the highest in the area, and it's a little bit of positioning in our market. It's the Non-Stuffy Attorney brand, for example, that is brand positioning. It's like, okay, the majority of the public thinks that an attorney is stuffy, stuck up, conceited, right? It couldn't be further from the truth, but that's the general consensus. So when we say we're not that, then that's a position. And then there's a lot of people out there who are purchasing on price, and they're either buying the most expensive or the least expensive.
Right.
Very, very few are going for the middle ground. So you get, you get in that middle ground, you get a little bit lost. And yeah, I'd rather have one client for 10 grand than 10 clients for 1,000. Yeah, it's all about positioning. Hey, if you want to be a mill and pump out, shitty documents and charge $1,000 a pop, have all that stuff, go for it. But that could be your position,
Yeah, look, we all get to design our own practice. And I was having dinner with another estate planner, said her initial meeting, she tries to be done in 45 minutes. I'm like, I've barely scratched the surface with these folks. We initially spend 2 hours in that initial meeting because, one, we're trying to get to the bottom of things. And two, like, clients have responded well. They say thank you at the end of it. We've listened to them talk for 2 hours. Mostly, we're asking a lot of questions about what needs to happen, and it gives us the chance to come back around to things. Not everybody wants to do that. That attorney who's doing things in 45 minutes, she has a very successful practice. It works for her.
Yeah. Is that your initial consultation with them before they retain you or after?
We have been retained at that point.
Okay.
So we do, it's 2-stage practice. So they come in for an initial consult, and at the end of that, I can make recommendations and we get commitment on what they're going forward with. So that, this is why we've explained it. And, we've talked through it enough that I can say, here's what you need. You need this level of tax planning, this level of trust planning. Here's what we're going to do with beneficiary designations. And that way, when I asked them for the rest of the money for, drafting and executing, they were there. They heard us talk through all of it.
Yeah. So so there's 2 stages of billing that you do for an estate plan?
Yes.
So when does the initial one happen?
So the initial is the initial strategy session. We bill one thing for that.
Okay.
That is one engagement, because sometimes people decide for whatever reason they're not going to move forward. Yeah. And, it's easier to bring them in, talk through things, give them options and say, like, here's where you're going to go, or here's where we think you fit in. With that in mind, then, at the end of it, well, actually, even before that meeting, I'm sending them an email. Here are your 3 options. We'll talk about them at the end, but this way they've received those options before that meeting. So it's not a surprise. Like, frankly, I used to get some heartburn. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to ask this person for $15,000. It's a lot easier if I've sent them an email that hopefully they've read, and I've said, I have not made a recommendation. I've just said, the good, better, best pricing. These are the 3 options. And people come in and they can kind of, one, they've seen that. It's not me just, ta-da, here's your one price. It's, here's what I think makes sense for you. And, again, we could talk about things. I've got, a client right now where they are off menu options because their situation didn't line up with normal planning. And that's okay. Like, I'm happy to get that set up for them.
Yeah. Yeah. So the initial strategy session, do you have like an intake team that is selling that?
So, right. If somebody calls in, they'll talk to the intake team. Intake team will gather information from them, where are their assets, who's involved, basic questions. If you compare it to going to a doctor, it's the nurse taking your temperature. Like, there's no magic in me collecting that information.
Yep.
I, intentionally don't send out questionnaires or surveys or PDF of please fill this out. People don't want to do that.
No, not at all. We don't do that either.
Right. I would rather spend the money on an intake person who's going to talk to them, kind of hear them out. Everybody knows roughly what they have. They may not know absolutely everything, but they're going to know where most of their stuff is. And that's fine. Like, that's all we're trying to capture. We're making it as easy as possible, like, for them to give us the information we need. I don't want statements because we don't need rough statements. Like, I need to know roughly how much you have. It's either 100,000 or a million or 10 million in that IRA. Just get me in the ballpark. Until you're dead, there's really nothing else we need to worry about. You know how many houses you have. And so we're pulling that information out. They are explaining the process is the next thing, they can get a free 15-minute.
This is still the intake, right? That's doing
right. This is intake.
Okay.
Yeah, they're just gathering information.
So this is the first call. Someone calls in, they're talking to intake. Intake is doing all of this. And then they're scheduling a 15-minute call. Is that what it is?
Right. They will offer to schedule the strategy session, but really the goal is to get that 15-minute call with me. Just talk to me, make sure, both directions. I want to make sure I'm comfortable working with them and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
That I say I don't give legal advice. In 15 minutes, I can't give anybody a real good answer on anything. It's like, hey, Bill and Sue, it's good to talk to you. What questions do you have for me? Oh, well, we're thinking about trust. Well, here's the thing. What we'll talk about more. I can't give you specific advice, but these are the type of trust we'd be thinking about. Given your asset level, we'd be probably thinking about blah, 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 blah. And kind of getting, again, another touch with them. But at the same time, we've sent out the engagement letter for the strategy session, collecting the retainer for that initial payment.
How does the strategy, the price of the strategy session compare to the overall price?
Because we've got 3-tier pricing, it's anywhere from 25% of the total price on the low end to 4% on the high end for our consistent packages.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, and it's meant to, like, we're asking for nearly $1,000 for that initial meeting.
Yep. Yeah.
If you're
do the same.
Yeah, right. If you're going to have a heartburn about a 2-hour meeting with me costing that much, you're not going to stick around. And that's the point. It's like, I need to charge enough to keep people honest, but I don't want to charge so much that they feel like, we're not paying attention. And it took me a while to work up. Like, I think I started at $200 for that meeting, not knowing what people would pay. And every time, every 5 or 10 times people paid it, raised the price by $50.
Yeah.
And
it's funny that on that point, it's like, I'm sure you got people who were like, I'm not paying $200. Right.
Oh yeah.
And it's
right.
Those people,
you don't have to.
Right. You don't have to. Those people would have said the same thing at 1,000. It's like the people who say no right now for 1,000 would say no to $100. So it's really interesting. It's funny. It's funny how that is.
Right. And that's the point, is like, make it easy for people to opt out. If you go to my website, I have my dogs listed as employees. Frankly, we're getting ready to put the potted money tree on as an employee as well. Why? Again, like, this is a weird business. Like, you can go get a stuffy attorney anywhere.
Yeah.
If you would like to have somebody, like, I'm not going in saying I've got to work in these 5 jokes in a meeting, but we're talking about heavy things, and we're going to at least make it somewhat entertaining for you in a respectful manner based on what we're doing. Like, it gets hard to talk about death and dying and have to be serious all day. And
totally,
the clients who don't want that, there are many other, stuffy attorney options. You can go get that wherever you want.
Those clients are few and far between, though. Few and far between. Yeah.
Right. Like, I've had, few clients who are, nobody's ever been upset that I've got the dogs on the website, get told we picked you because of the dogs on the website, which also means there have been plenty of people who didn't pick me because of dogs on the website, because I wasn't nearly serious enough for them. It's great. Those were never going to be good clients. I was going to be frustrated working for them the entire time.
Yeah. Yeah. We got our dogs on the website too. It's like a bark office manager and the paw illegal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Clients love them. Clients love
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. I mean,
And
people are upset they can't meet them.
yes.
And, like, sorry, the office doesn't want us, the building doesn't want us bringing non-service dogs in.
Oh, you don't bring them into the office. Oh, that's
Yeah.
a
And
shame.
again,
That's,
yeah, I mean, look, I'd love to, but I also know they would not be happy there.
oh no.
No, it's just, they're wonderful boys, but they're not the ones who are going to sit and be quiet. They are going to be running around, and I need to get work done.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, we've got 2 golden retrievers. One's 5, the other's 4. Great dogs, super lovable. The one I've trained him. I trained him so good. Oh my God. I could walk down, a city street off leash and he'll stay right with me. His only thing is he gets so excited about seeing people that he twirls and he'll hit you in your legs when he twirls. And like, you got elderly people coming in here. It's like, fucking break someone's leg. And then the other guy, he's pretty docile, but he'll bark when if he sees someone walk in, he'll bark at him.
Yeah.
So thankfully, we've got our office is like a U shape, and we've got the entrance is on one side of the U, and on the other side we keep them. We got a baby gate so they can't go over into the client area. Every now and then a client will be like, "Oh, I want to meet them," and we just like, "Hey, look, you're gonna get excited." They never care though. But they would die if we left them at home. Oh my God, these 2 guys, their whole life would implode. They're like the most needy dogs in the world. But they're great. Yeah. So are you guys working, you have hybrid virtual employees, or are you guys all in the office?
We're it's hybrid. Everyone's kind of trusted to work from home when it makes sense for them. So I'm working from home today. I was in the office expecting to have a client signing this morning. They had to reschedule because of their own personal reasons. So I went in, grabbed lunch, came home. If that hadn't been there, I would have been here all day. Tomorrow, I will be working from home all day. Again, whatever works for people. Again, with the estate planning practice, we do need to be in person for signings.
Yeah.
And it's also just good practice to make sure, like the person you're working with remains a live human being that you have to deal with. They're not just somebody you can, I'll say abuse, but they're not just a 2D collection of pixels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Have you done so with the estate planning? You're pretty much limited to your geographical area, then your local area.
Texas allows for remote notarization of
it does.
Original signatures. So yeah, that started at the beginning of 24. We do sign documents remotely and have signed documents. Currently, the Philippines is as far away as we've signed a wedding document.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Florida, we're looking into it because we only do estate planning locally. We all of our marketing is for estate planning is with postcards.
Right.
And the issue has been the signings. And I know that Florida has some pretty strict rules regarding, I forget, the document has to go directly to, I forget what it's called. Anyway, it has to be held by maybe a separate either yourself or a separate entity has to hold it. Is that the same thing with you guys?
I don't know. That doesn't sound right. I mean, Texas requires that wills and codicils have to be physical documents with wedding signatures, but they can be signed anywhere. The notary, thanks to wedding notarization, doesn't have to be physically present with them. The witnesses do need to be in the same room, but
Okay.
there is we've got enough on how to get this all signed, that we can
Oh,
get that done.
so you're not talking about online notaries.
So what this is, a notary who works for me is able to digitally notarize things or remotely notarize. Originally, you could just apply an electronic signature and notarize that. That was fine for deeds, transferring real estate. The upgrade has been, well, now we can have documents where they are signing, wet ink signature. The notary is appearing on a platform like this. The client sends us back the original documents, and the notary can then say this was notarized, it was signed in accordance with Texas law, all the rest of the stuff, with just another page of documentation.
Okay, so the client, they're doing it over video, but the client has the actual physical document in front of them. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting. And then so they sign it, and then they
Right.
send it back to the notary. They notarize it.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
That's
So we're
interesting.
typically we're putting together the package of here are all the documents to sign. So they get, flagged documents, pull it out, they jump on a Zoom with me to walk through everything, make sure they don't have any questions. They're kind of initialing and getting everything else done with me. And then I leave this, we all leave that session. They go over to the notary session, kind of hold up the documents for the notary. The notary does what they need to. Once they've signed, they drop everything in a FedEx envelope back to us. And then it comes out and we stamp it, and we've got the original wet ink signatures for those documents. And you kind of mentioned this, you're doing things locally. My clients primarily in Texas, they're here in Houston where we are, but I'll get them, Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, San Antonio. It's rare that I'm getting clients far flung areas. And I don't see that really changing. Like, I'm not looking to start competing in Amarillo or El Paso or anything like that. We have clients who have friends and family, and we make sense for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're happy to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. In Florida, you can do the remote online notarization with not wet signatures. I don't want electronic signatures. But yeah, it has to go. I was just talking with another attorney down in South Florida about it. It has to go directly to this other, and there's a specific name for it. God, it's on the tip of my tongue. But then that company has to hold the documents.
Really?
Yeah. And so he's talking about, he's set up the entity. So he was wanting to partner together to kind of set this up and really trial run it with our own firms, and then start marketing it to other Florida attorneys. Yeah, I forget what it's called. Anyway, yeah, so we're gonna definitely interesting. It's something to look at, but we just haven't done much of them, much if any, online. For wills and for last wills and testaments specifically.
Right. And this is where, I looked at it as we have, certain clients where we know we're going to get people outside of the Houston area. Why not have that available? We want to think about what is necessary. Like, what can we help clients do? Look, we may have somebody in the hospital. How can we make that work?
Yeah. Yeah. We're definitely all about making it as easy as possible for our clients in all aspects, right? You had mentioned the intake. I want the phone call to be answered quickly, their questions answered, them routed into a consultation very, very smoothly. Find a time that works for them, not necessarily a time that works for us. It does all work for us, but it's like, okay, what time works for you? But then, the whole process from soup to nuts, how easy is it? How smooth is it for them?
Right.
That's something we have a lot of attention on. One thing we notice with probate is that we have the only complaints we get is a lack of communication. Now, the lack of communication, interestingly, is normally during periods of waiting,
Right.
where we're not necessarily updating them. And, when you have as many cases as we got, it can get a little difficult to be like prioritize someone who you're just going to call them up and say, hey, there's no update. We're just waiting.
Right.
Right. Yeah. But with Zoho, that's the platform we use. It's got a project, right? Are you familiar with Zoho?
Vaguely, yes.
Yeah. So it has a projects app, which is where we run all of our tasks on, right? So there's a probate project, estate plan project. It's just all the tasks, the different segments, everything that needs to be done in there, kind of like we were talking earlier. But it has all that. You assign it to certain people. But in there, we're building out a thing that once a task is completed, it's going to send them an automatic update on,
Right.
hey, this was complete. Hey, your attorney reviewed this document. And it's going to say that it's an automated email so that it doesn't look like it's coming, or if it gets sent accidentally or whatever. But yeah, we got to get better at the communication there. It's a lot to build out for us, but hopefully we'll have it done within a month. I think it'll help out a lot. It's just even during the waiting period. Hey, here's an update, right? Or hey, no news to report right now. If someone tells me that, it's like, okay, expect an update from me in 2 weeks. It's like, okay, fine.
Right.
Now I know to expect 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. That makes sense. And I mean, we aim for talking to everybody every 2 weeks. And the point on it is to just give ourselves, space to get things done for what we're doing. Most, like that's reasonable. And if, we're trying to run down things with the court or whatever, it'll just take time. More than anything, people want to know when to expect to hear from you, because if they don't and you don't say anything, well, then they're going to fill in their, what they think is reasonable.
Yep. When there's no information, I was taught this a long time ago. When there's no information, people will invent information.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Like they'll figure out what they think is reasonable in terms of what should be doing. What should you be doing?
Yep. They'll just make up. Okay, he's over there. He's just twiddling his thumbs. He's not doing anything. He's on vacation. He must be whatever, right? They generate it. It's like when there's no information, people will fill the void by creating it themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so that's our job. We don't want them thinking, we don't want them doing that.
No, that's bad practice. That doesn't really turn out. They're never like, oh, he's over there working his ass off on my case. He hasn't talked to me in a month. Oh, he's just really doing it up. Like it's the opposite.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what do you see? What's the goal with your firm? Where do you see it going?
No plans to retire. Good news and bad news. I enjoy what I do. I am happy to continue kind of practicing this way for a while. Like I don't see taking on partners. Really, it's kind of growing as it makes sense to kind of keep things moving along. And if I can keep doing that, well, where does that look like? I mean, it's less, the growth we have internally, it's just by developing our referral sources and kind of keeping them together. Like we're putting together, we've got a scheduled thank you / firm anniversary party coming up in the middle of next month. But also looking, well, I don't necessarily want to partner with people, but there are estate planners who are looking to land their plane. How do we make it appealing for them to come in and kind of have their practice be built with us or landed with us so that they know that their clients are being taken care of?
So you're looking at acquiring others? Is that what you're kind of thinking?
Yeah, I've talked to different practice folks or different attorneys. We've gotten different lengths down the way of, this is what we're looking for. You want to come in, you want to have a practice, you want to take care of your clients, kind of lower what you're doing. Well, maybe we're working in terms of like we're taking over some of the back end admin for you. That for other solos, practice. I'm a sole owner, not a true solo. But if I were to quit, 6 people get fired.
Yeah.
And while I'm not planning on retiring anytime soon, that is something I think about. It's like, whenever I plan on retiring, I'm going to, thinking about those people who are with me then. How do we take care of them? How do we make sure that they're, respected for their contributions and not just, casually thrown away?
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I thought about that as well.
Yeah.
It's funny because Ashley and I very much view our employees as our responsibility. It's like we've
Right.
taken them on, right? We're responsible for paying their paycheck. We're responsible
Right.
for increasing their pay, their standard of living, right? All these
Right.
facets of life, we really have taken on ownership of, right? Of course,
Right.
we're not responsible for paying their bills. They are, but essentially it's like, hey, they're here working their ass off for us. We now
Right.
have this obligation to them. And we really kind of realized it, funny enough, when we had an employee who was just super toxic.
Mhm.
And we were in a real bind then. We had a lot of work and we thought that we couldn't afford to lose her. That was the viewpoint. We thought that we couldn't afford to lose her. Come to find out, the work that she was doing was shit work and it was a total liability. But we were like, hey, she's doing, but she was all toxic.
Right.
And we realized that we're just totally responsible for the culture here. And
Right.
if we let this person stick around, we're essentially telling our other employees that we don't give a shit
Right.
about we essentially don't care about them because we're allowing this person in here to wreak havoc. Yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, so you kind of talk about retirement. Yeah, if you were to die tomorrow, right? Like shit. Yeah. So what do you do? So you bring in, you don't want to have partners, but then how do you handle that then?
Right. And so for me, because I'm not looking at quitting anytime soon, I don't have to come up with an answer for this. But thinking about it for other attorneys who are, 10, 15, 20 years down the line, and they are like, I've had the conversations and they're delicate conversations. I don't want to kind of press anybody into it, but thinking through, like, I've had enough good reception to it that I keep that open of, yeah, I would love to have people come in and kind of finish their practice with me. We get the benefit of working together, but in a way that's not overly committed.
Okay.
Look, if, it's not jumping from we're having lunch to being full on partners. It's a progression of, all right, well, for me, I'm particular about the way I've set up my practice. We use Smith AI. We don't have a server in the office because everything's in share file. We use Clio and on and on the way we do it. If you're going to come in and do that, like, I don't want to have to take on your, physical server and your multi-year lease somewhere. Like, we've got to make it make sense for me. And if that's going to be a deal breaker, we can stop there. That's very easy to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
And so kind of having it be the progression of, all right, well, maybe you come in and, we're taking over some of the back end for you. And, you're paying us directly to administer that. We're kind of cleaning up the website so that it looks better. We're, doing Smith AI so your folks aren't answering the phones, or it's, maybe it's only after hours that the phones are forwarded.
Yeah.
Kind of figuring out those pieces, and that, do we need to have some sort of employment agreement where, there are different stages. And as I said, like, it hasn't gone all the way through, But I had one guy who we'd gotten far enough on the process that I really liked it and kind of keep it in my mind of this is a better model. As estate planners, there's not a whole lot to buy in a practice. I mean, sure, I've built wonderful things, but if I were to sell this, just taking a plain look at it is like, without me here, what is anybody buying? You're
Right.
buying like my documents and my folders.
Yeah, there's not recurring revenue. And that's a little bit of the concern, that I have with it. So so you approach an attorney who's, on the tail end of their career. What you're going to take over these things? Is there financial incentive to them to do it?
I mean, I'm an option. Like, one, good luck going and selling this practice.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, there are firms that are also kind of rolling up those practices and giving them a spot before they pass. Definitely an option for people to think about. Like, here, this is how we can get you taken care of, how we can make sure everything is done for you. What do we want to think about? Like, how can we make sure this works for you? If you have a better option, or if you've got somebody who's willing to buy you something or buy you out, that's okay. Look, I'm not going to tell you no.
Yeah. Are you interested in their staff?
I think that would be part of it. It's like, look, we're kind of absorbing everybody, because then you're getting the benefit of those people who weren't planning on retiring just because the boss quits. Well, they don't have to find a new job, but obviously we'd need to get them integrated in our systems.
Yeah.
To make sure that it'll work.
Yeah. So do you then you essentially pull their practice into, you're using Clio? Is that what you said?
Right.
So would you essentially pull their practice into Clio and it be pretty much under your roof?
Right. Yeah. This is if we're going to integrate you in, I'm not going to, I don't want to run two sets of books. I don't want to run two sets of operating systems. We need to figure out a way to make your system work inside of ours. And that's the reason for the longer lead time. We're not just jumping in and then you jump in and say, wait a minute, we're using your phone system? No, we're not doing that. Like, we're having those fights kind of gradually through dating, not just jumping straight to marriage.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Because I'm thinking through all this. I love that you're doing it, or you're interested in doing it, because it's been a thing in my head for several years. But I haven't figured out how to even approach someone to make it sound real reasonable. So financially, compensation wise, with the new attorney, or the attorney, right? Are you saying to them, hey, whatever you sell, you keep, or you're keeping a percentage, or whatever? Like, I guess, how is that addressed? Because you don't want to pay them a salary. You don't want to pay them a salary, right?
No, and it would depend on what it looks like for them. Are they really only working on theirs alone? In talking, the guy who got me onto this, it really was going to be he was going to basically keep what he generated, and I was going to get a fee for kind of managing the back end of his practice, so he didn't have to worry about that anymore. This was during the beginning of COVID, and ultimately he just he decided that just going straight to retirement was a better deal for him. Hey, no shame in that, but I hold on to that idea of, oh, this was there's a lot in here to like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely something I want to look into a bit more. It's because there's plenty of people around here who are ready to retire.
Yeah.
I wish there was.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I wish there was a way to have this so there was recurring revenue, right?
Yeah.
there's like maintenance plans that some attorneys do. We have something there, but I don't even think it's super valuable. I just don't think it would be used very often. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know any other way to have recurring revenue with a estate planning and probate practice.
Yeah.
You got any ideas?
I mean, I think you've heard the best one I've got.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, man. Well, I think I better run.
Yeah. No, it's been a
been
good
great.
conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been great. Learned a lot. Appreciate the insight and the tips. You got me thinking with some things that are pretty good. Yeah. Yeah. Very helpful. Cool. Well, if you ever need anything, man, don't ever hesitate to reach out, and I'll definitely hit you up if I need anything, whether you like it or not.
Good news and bad news. Thanks, Joe.
All right, cool. Well, take care of yourself. Have a good day.
You too. Bye, Joe.
All right. See ya.